I'm just a lazy video gamer, even too lazy to make a new intro. Hello out there in video land, it's me again, the lazy video gamer, and today, maybe you guessed it, I'm talking about today about wrestling games. In the back you see WrestleFest from Technosoft, but that's not the topic of this episode. In this episode I want to take a look when it starts by myself, when I come to my first console. So I'll do that in a little bit a rating system. I'm starting with the worst game that I played back in the day on the original Game Boy. Hope you get passing this through, and stay tuned till the good games arriving. So the first game that I want to take a look at is of course the baddest, and it's on the Game Boy, The King of the Ring. It was on the original Game Boy a late game, but it is known today as licensed trash. A very trist menu, a very trist look of the game. You have one-on-one tag team tournament and the King of the Ring tournament. You have 3 different difficulty levels, but when you take a look at the game itself, it has a roster, a decent roster, and the wrestlers are recognizable in this screen, but yeah, with different attributes as well, and the big opportunity to even get as yourself in the ring, and that was a big plus. But if I be honest, it is the only plus that this game have. You have a roster of maybe 8 wrestlers: Razor Ramon, Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, the Hitman is in it, the Macho Man is in it, Mr. Perfect is in it, and of course Hulk Hogan was in it. The music even of the wrestlers are not that great. So when you're in the game, as you can see, it's hard to tell which one is you and which one is Hulk Hogan, for example. The sound effects are very bad. The move palette isn't that great. Most time you punch and kick to get through this game. Take a look at the backside of the screen, at the audience of the event. 2 or 3 colors, that's not enough. We saw better on the Game Boy. So yeah, when you do a body slam, it looks more than you throwing something through the air that has the size of a little package and not of a wrestler. It hasn't this look, and it is today a chore to play this game. So when I come to the next game, who isn't that great, but it wasn't that bad, like King of the Rings. let's face it, WWF Raw wasn't the best idea to put on a handheld. On the Game Boy you're having 8 different wrestlers and every wrestler can do some finishing moves, but that doesn't rescue this game. It was an attempt to close up to the LJN games from the 16-bit consoles, so you have this energy bar who shows which wrestler do the move. It was a button smasher, of course, and I think, and I thought back then as well, a button smashing wrestling game on a console that you only have this one controller who was built in wasn't the best idea. So, but it plays decent. Now, this game was also left on the Game Gear, came with the same match types, and it was no surprise added some wrestlers. That was common in the days, back in those days, that you have 1 or 2 wrestlers replaced, but this variation has more wrestlers. But in the core, it's the same game. It looked nice. It looks, if I be honest, funny. Especially the audience characters, they remind me of another wrestling game who I will feature in another episode, but it was, as on the Game Boy, a decent wrestling game, but yeah, in my opinion, almost a little bit a chore as well to play. The wrestlers weren't that good displayed, but you, with a little bit fantasy, you could recognize them. So yeah, for a little Game Boy or Game Gear wrestling, it was okay. So the next game in my list has many in common with the following. It's WWF Superstars Part 2. It features 6 wrestlers. What wasn't the biggest number of wrestlers who were to choose, but it was decent. It also had some wrestlers that are not in the direct competition to the game who was in direct competition on the Game Gear. And both games are very similar when it comes to the gameplay. You had your single matches and you had also your steel cage matches. On the Game Boy you're having a little bit a smaller ring than on the Game Gear, but you have the same moveset. No finishing moves, just basic generic moves to fight with, to play with, but it was okay. The Game Gear version, on the other hand, on the other side, was a direct portation of the Master System version of this game, and it was called WWF Steel Cage Challenge, and comes with a bigger cadre of playable wrestlers, all in color, with the legendary Howard Finkel as announcer, a bigger ring, but the same move palette. So this game, in my opinion, is the second place on this rating. If you're interested in it, if you have a copy, play it once again, or if you find a copy for cheap. It's surely not the best wrestling game you can play, but it's a decent fun, and for back in the days, it's one of the better ones. But that brings me to my absolute favorite from this era, and it's funny. It's also distributed from LJN, but it was developed from Rare, and you see that in the game. It's something very different. It's WWF Superstars. It's funny because WWF Superstars 2 was developed by LJN themselves. Now, what is sad about this game is that it has a really small number of playable characters. There were 5 characters like Mr. Perfect, Ted DiBiase, the Macho Man, or the Macho King, as he's named back then in this era, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior, and that's all. You have the opportunity to make single matches, that's all. 1 or 3 pinfalls, that's the only variation, but the overall presentation is great. It has not only a cool intro between the fights or before the fights, you have also a fantastic sound for the Game Boy and a very cool and good looking graphic. Okay, nowadays you can say you don't see any audience in the back, but yeah, that is a little tear in my eye for this game, but it was action loaded. You could throw your opponent with a special move once in a match out of the ring, or you throw it in your opponent again against a pole. So it has also a little bit generic move palette from punches and body slams, but also not finishers, but a unique move for every wrestler who was in it. And it looks great, it plays great, even today. And that is my number 1 wrestling game in the battle from the Game Boy versus the Game Gear. And that was it for this week's episode of the Lazy Video Gamer Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a commentary down below which was your favorite game from this console, handheld generation. So in the meantime, I thank you for watching. Have a fantastic Sunday, have a fantastic week, and don't forget, the game is never over. I'm just a lazy video gamer, even too lazy to make a new intro.